Welcome back to another episode of the Vet Worthwhile podcast. I am James Yost, partner and wealth advisor at Signature FD, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Travis York, owner of 3-1 Advisors. Travis, how are you?
I'm doing great today, James. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Vet Worthwhile podcast by Signature FD.
Hosted by Travis York
and James Yost. We are super excited to get this going. I know that this is something that Travis and I have been working on for a long time, and we're excited to bring it to you, the listener. So Travis, tell us, what is this podcast and how did this come to be?
Well, yeah, I mean, James, let's just start. Like most ideas, they come up over a beer. So if we rewind back to Vegas in March, we were sitting around the table with a bunch of our friends having a drink and talking about, what we all may want to do, and got a little philosophical and kicked around the idea of a podcast that really focused on providing our listeners with a 30,000 foot view of what's going on in the veterinary space. Having been around the industry for a long time, I can tell you we are in a very dynamic time. And it's just, in our view, what came out of that conversation was, man, if the veterinarians actually had a resource to learn and get a bird's eye view of what was happening in their industry with a lot of different perspectives, would really empower them. And so that's what we're excited about doing here. Can you maybe it may be interesting, if you just told us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I would love to. And that was we had a great time in Western and excited to bring this idea to fruition. So yeah, my name is James Yost. I'm a private wealth advisor. Grew up in the metro Atlanta area, have gotten into the veterinary space through a lot of different connections. One is my wife and I have a history of doing a lot of animal rescue work. We have 2 dogs and 3 cats. We probably, if we're up to her, have 10 cats, maybe more. But it was kind of a natural calling through the work that we've done together and through the passions we've always had as animal lovers. And then, like anything else, you kind of happen to start working in it a little bit, and you start to learn a lot about how it works and where the risks are, where the opportunities are, until you really develop a great subject matter expertise, which is what has happened. So it's been a great journey. I mean, it's been a lot of fun. As you know, vets are down to earth people, and they're great to work with. So it's been fantastic, and we're looking forward to continuing that on the next chapter. So.
I mean, James, it sounds like you've got a ton of information and ton of background that's really helpful, but it sounds like you may just be trying to get around the vet space to get a little free vet work. Is that what's going on here?
So secret is now out, I guess. Yeah. So my wife she's the ideal customer for any veterinary hospital, in that, she would cash in her 401k in order to extend the life of a 15-year-old cat, which is great. And, we love our cats, but, yeah, I'm hoping to potentially get some of that action down on the backside, but we'll see. Nothing's guaranteed in life, as they say. So Travis, you've been advising veterinarians though for over 2 decades. Like, how did you find yourself into this specialty?
Yeah, I mean, I guess probably truthfully, I'm a failed accountant. Is really how I ended up here. Long story, kind of Reader's Digest version. I grew up in a small animal veterinary hospital in a small town in Iowa. My dad was the family business. It was what we did. I graduated with an accounting degree, and, kind of after failing out of being an accountant, I stumbled into lending exclusively to veterinarians about 20 years ago. And, have kind of taken all of that knowledge and at this point in time, spending most of my time advising veterinarians on starting, operating, as well as, planning their succession and being successful in their veterinary ownership journey, which it's been a lot of fun.
That's great. I love it. Tell us about 3-1 Advisors. What are you up to now? What are you working on?
Yeah. So 3-1 Advisors, is something that started kind of as just a little bit of a holding pattern for me last year. Have found, just through personal connections and introductions, a real need for coaching. That's kind of one of my big passions in life is coaching. Truth be told, if I could do whatever I wanted, I'd go coach baseball, but that's not necessarily possible. So kind of taking that passion and directing it into coaching veterinarians on, starting their own hospital, providing some resources and coaching on, opportunities that are in front of them to grow and expand, or at the end of the day, just have a plan and strategy for their hospital and where they want to go with their hospital.
No, that's awesome. And I know that's a huge need out there in the ecosystem. And that sounds fantastic.
I mean, kind of along those lines, James, one of the things, as you and I were exploring and we got to know each other through some different personal connections and personal conversations, we, fortunately for us, probably, like most positive experiences, this didn't come from, hey, let me just start randomly trying to call wealth advisors and see if there's any interest in the vet space. It started out of, conversations and learning a little bit more about Signature FD. And really, one of the first things that came out of our conversations there was this thesis of net worthwhile. Hence, we've gone ahead and named our podcast the Vet Worthwhile Podcast.
Yep.
But can you, tell everybody a little bit, about what net worthwhile is? Because I think that really resonates in the veterinary industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to. And before I even get into that too, just like some background on our firm. So Signature FD was founded in 1997 and spun out of an accounting practice, local Atlanta accounting firm, really because the founders saw an opportunity out there where the accounting practice had clients that had questions about investments and insurance and tax and estate stuff and more like planning type questions. And they didn't have a great resource to send them to. So they saw an opportunity there to start a firm and capitalize on that and go out and see if we could create a product that served that need. And so the firm did exactly that and has grown a tremendous amount. And also over that time period, we came to the conclusion that different types of demographics have different types of planning concerns and planning needs that require subject matter expertise. And so what we have at Signature FD is different initiatives designed to cater to a specific type of person. So we have an initiative, for example, that works exclusively with professional athletes. Like they have their own unique challenges and unique needs. We have an initiative that just works with business owners, for example. So there are 8 of the initiatives that we have. The one that I work with is the health initiative. And then the team that I run works on the veterinary side. So, we've taken this niche practice, but also allowed us to take advantage of the resources we have as a firm at large, as a large RIA with 90 employees.
I mean, and that's been one of the things in our conversations that's just been incredibly interesting, right? I mean, at 23 years old, I stumbled into a lending bank opportunity that focused on veterinary hospitals, child daycare facilities, and limited service hotels. And so, through that, obviously, I've learned some very beneficial lessons around how you support veterinarians and lending. What do you think is different on kind of the wealth advisory and personal CFO side of things in these niches and, specifically probably with veterinarians?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think it's safe to say that vets are a unique breed of people, super down to earth. They're very good at what they do. Oftentimes in veterinary medicine, they're so busy in their practice, serving their clients and patients that they aren't able to fully focus on some of the business side. So that's something that definitely sets them apart from a traditional entrepreneur. A lot of them have that entrepreneurial spirit, but there's, a blend of altruism, a blend of science. And so it's just a different breed, not to be too on the nose with that one, but than some of the other business owners that we work with. But I want to answer your question because you asked about the Vet Worthwhile. The podcast is the Vet Worthwhile Podcast, which is a funny little pun on our firm's tagline, which is, what is your net worthwhile? And what I want to answer your question on with that is what we've seen over the years is that so many people are just focused on wealth, which is, we define it as the accumulation of more. And that's just a part of the story, right? And so we had seen we call the 96% problem, where people just spend 4% of their wealth and then, they die with 96% by definition. And then they were kind of sacrificing throughout that time and maybe not enjoying their wealth to the fullest while they were alive and end up just giving it away when they pass away. And so what we thought was we would want to do is, and what we tried to focus on doing is saying, okay, let's do the wealth piece incredibly well. We understand that. Let's do that incredibly well. That's table stakes at this point. But let's also try to figure out that worth piece and say, what are the things out there that makes our clients tick? What are the things that make them happy? So that ultimately what we want to do is take as much of the stress and anxiety of financials and personal finance off of their chest so that they can focus on the things that they want to do and what they love.
Wait, you're saying balancing checkbooks and making sure that you can pay the bills isn't exactly what most people find fun?
Yeah, we found that only you find that fun, Travis, actually. So yeah, so that's the net worthwhile piece. And so we believe that wholeheartedly as a firm. And then, the net and the vet kind of, I think they rhyme just a touch. So it works out really well. So Travis, back to the podcast. So who is this podcast for? And like, what's in it for them? Like, what are we going to be bringing to these people?
I guess in my view, James, and in my hope and ambition in setting out to do this is that we bring access to information. I grew up in a veterinary hospital, and the change in what veterinary medicine, how clients are served and how patients are cared for and how the businesses are owned and operated has evolved so quickly. And so whether you are an owner having some of these changes directly impact you and impact your business, whether you're an associate inside of a hospital who never wants to own a hospital, understanding the business of how where you work and what you do impacts your life only empowers you to make better decisions, right? So, really, my hope is that anybody who is in the veterinary space finds this incredibly useful, finds it incredibly insightful. And, we hope to bring experts and thought leaders inside of your space together to share what they've learned, as well as, quite frankly, take lessons learned from other niches, as James talked about, right? You have a lot of niches that you focus on. I've seen through my career niches. Let's find some people that can, give new ideas on how you can continually evolve, your space. And it should be applicable to everybody that's here.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, we're fired up about it. We're excited about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. We've got a great lineup of guests that we already have mapped out for our first season. So Travis, why don't you tell listeners what they can expect? Like maybe what's the frequency that we're going to be releasing content and, things like that.
Yeah. So, I think our goal is going to be to kind of hit an every other week rhythm, really try to keep these concise. Obviously, we know you guys are all busy and running 100 miles an hour. So we're going to bring you a lot of valuable information inside of, a 30-minute window. James, maybe, one of the things that I think would be fun is what do you hope that somebody who commits to, listening to season 1 and giving us a shot, what might they walk away with? What do you want them to get out of this?
The goal would be, I think it would be a success if there's enough subscribers out there and listeners out there that have found us to be valuable allies of theirs. And they've been able to gain nuggets of knowledge from either us or the guests that we bring on that can make a positive and tangible impact on their life. I mean, that sounds kind of broad. I think we're just going to be bringing such a diverse panel of experts, so to speak, throughout the course of the first season that, whether you're considering selling your practice or looking just to be prepared for what's in store for the future of the veterinary industry, or if you're having trouble hiring, which is obviously super common right now, interested in startups. There's just a multitude of great content that we're hoping to put out. So like, to me, success in the first season is just there's people out there that are finding this useful. I love hanging out and talking to you, of course, it's great, but hopefully there's other people that can find value in what we're doing, and then ultimately continue to build our brand within the space and help as many people as we can.
Yeah, no, that's, again, the end goal of this in my mind is, let's get out there and help people and empower people. That's how this is going to make a difference in my mind.
Yeah, I love it. A couple more questions. So this is something that I've always, like when I first started working with vets several years ago, it was very different than what I think as an outsider looking in, it was very different than what I had anticipated. So what's something that like seems to be a big misunderstanding about the veterinary industry?
That's a tough question, right? Like, I think at the end of the day, one of the biggest misunderstandings that is out there is that veterinarians aren't business people. For the first 100 years of veterinary medicine, every veterinarian ran their own business.
Yeah.
And so these are, the veterinary industry as a whole, and the veterinarians are good business people, even if it's by chance, right? It may not be the same as somebody like myself who went to school to understand business, but I think they are good business people that have really exciting businesses that are a lot of fun to learn more about. Kind of along those lines, we all kind of pick up some certain, all take certain risks along the way. Veterinarians are probably no different, right? At some point in time, you either buy a business for a lot of veterinarians or you go start your own business. Mm-hmm. What's, just personally for you, James, what's a big risk that you took in life that has paid off?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it actually kind of ties back into what you were just saying, and also ties into some of the guests we're going to have on in a few weeks, is just betting on yourself and empowering yourself to take risks and to kind of, in the context of a veterinarian, it's to go out and hang your own shingle and dabble into building your own business. I've worked at firms that have 50,000 employees and firms that have 100 employees and even smaller firms that have 30 employees. And so I've had very different experiences, being one of many, being one of a few, where you're much more involved in the day-to-day. But ultimately, it wasn't until I was able to bet on myself to go out and to build my practice that I felt truly happy and empowered and excited about what I was doing. And ultimately, there's the financial benefit of doing so as well, which is fun. So that's a great one. And that's something that we look forward to covering too in one of our episodes. Obviously, there's been a tremendous amount of consolidation in the space. And you hear people talk about all the time, like, is the startup hospital dead? Is it all going to be corporates in 20 years? You hear that kind of stuff. And obviously the last few years have been very hectic in the M&A space. But what's your take on that? What do you tell people?
Wait, you just said M&A space. What is M&A?
In the mergers and acquisitions. So the buying and selling of veterinary hospitals.
Yeah. Busy might be an understatement, but I'm firmly convinced that, this was not the California gold rush. We're not going to end up in a place where there's ghost towns running around
it's
out
the picks
there.
And shovels is what they said about the gold rush. Am I right?
Absolutely. Well, I guess, maybe we're kind of getting to a point where we want to bring this back around to, start thinking about what our season one is going to look like.
Question for you. So tell me about a case that you worked on that changed your perspective on the industry. Maybe something early on in the lending days, possibly something later on in the consolidation days. Where's your head at on that?
I probably one of the most telling, scenarios that like I went through personally was I was probably a year or two into kind of lending and, had a super excited young veterinarian bring an opportunity that they absolutely wanted to buy. And, like anybody who wants to originate a loan and, do everything and support somebody, I got all the information, put everything together. And like, I sat down and looked at it and like my eyes, like just like my jaw hit, like there was no way this deal worked. Right. So like, here's this person that I've, have been supporting and telling them, like all along, like, this is going to be great. And I had to call him and tell him that we couldn't, that like not only could I not do the loan, you shouldn't buy this hospital because of these reasons.
Yeah.
And here we are, probably 15 years later. And, like I've heard that even though she was rather upset with me at the time, I said that you shouldn't do this. It ended up working out far better for her. And I think she owns her own hospital at this point in time that she's happy with. Right. So I think, there is a lot of notion that, sometimes advice isn't appreciated in this industry. And I think that's so false. I think that the veterinary industry and veterinarians in particular are just hungry for learning opportunities to gain access to more information, to understand the space that they live in every day.
Yeah, which is great. That's exactly what we're hoping to accomplish here is bringing experts in that they may already know, may not know, teach them a thing or two about these specialties. And then hopefully it makes the profession better in general. That would be phenomenal.
I know kind of along those lines, one of the things that, we talked a little bit earlier is a lot of veterinarians are a combination of, altruistic and driven by, the relationship with their clients and their patients, and, driven by their hospital, and connecting that to the personal side of things. Like, how have you kind of found a way to make that connection between successful business and marrying that alongside of kind of, the personal financial side of things?
Yeah, great question. And this is what I spend the vast majority of my time doing, is helping somebody who owns a practice understand usually the ramifications of a transaction. So if they're considering selling their practice and they're considering all their options and they have different terms and different details, usually they're working with somebody who's helping them on the business side, but not necessarily somebody on the personal side who also knows these deals. They know the players, they know how they work. And so that's really what we do at our core, is help them to understand what are the personal financial ramifications of whatever the transaction could be, helping them understand, the difference between Class A and Class C shares, if it's something like that, understanding what a joint venture is. I mean, something as simple as understanding the difference between cash and equity, which we've heard questions on that before in the past, helping them understand what earnouts mean and what the lease terms mean if they own the practice real estate, and what's going to happen to them personally.
And one of the most exciting things that I've seen is just, you think about the transition from your business supporting your family and your life and creating that stability and comfort. We talked earlier about the risk of diving into that, but then the risk of the unknown of leaving, 30 years of knowing that security and having a resource that can, it's kind of a cool thing to see that whole process, play out.
Yeah, I mean, it's very fun, but it's also it's pretty terrifying for the vet. Oftentimes, as you said, most of them have lived off this asset and the cash flows from the practice for maybe 40 years, right? In case by case basis, obviously. So from taking an illiquid asset that you have full control over, that you're in every day, to an illiquid asset, and all of a sudden, to liquid assets in the public markets and what have you, and also having no paycheck anymore, it's pretty scary for the vets. So for us, I mean, we feel we can add a ton of value just by helping them understand exactly what's going to happen in the next chapter, and then smoothing that transition out as much as possible. Because just like you said, I mean, if you push them off a ledge, it's going to be really, really bad. Having done it enough times with enough vets, you learn and understand exactly what's going to happen, how to plan for it, how to get ahead of it, how to bring them up to speed on the front end, so that when they go through this process and there's paperwork every day they're signing, then they're going through UCC filings, and they're, and it's just constant chaos within the practice. They already know that their personal stuff's set up and ready to go as soon as they get to the finish line, which I think gives them a lot of peace of mind that they're making the right decision. And I think you and I both know how some of the data out there on the way the hospital owner feels after they sell their practice. And I think that's something you and I feel really passionate about tackling, is that most people, if you look 2 years down the road, they don't feel great about what they've done. And so for us, it's how do we get ahead of that on the front end with education and engagement, and get them excited about it so that everybody's set up for success, the buyer and the seller and everybody.
Well, and then I think it's most worthwhile, wrapping it back to the tagline of net worthwhile, right?
Exactly.
It's having been around the industry, so much of our worthwhile gets wrapped up in our identity. And for many hospital owners, their hospital is a significant portion of their identity.
Yeah.
And so it's really fun to see, take that time to do some digging and help people think about what else is their identity, and then how do you tap into that in, phase 2 or phase 3 career.
Yeah, that's great. We'll leave with one question. Let's do a fun one. And it doesn't even have to be vet specific or industry specific or what you do specific, just a light one. So if you could remove all barriers, income restraints, what's the projects that you would work on? What would you be focused on doing?
Wow. That's light. That's a heavy question. I mean, if there was, no barriers, again, I still go back to, I think at the core of what I like to do is teaching and coaching. I go back to our first kind of get together when we sat down with Heather, and who's the CEO at Signature FD, and she drew this little diagram and of me teaching. And I was like, I don't know if that's it. Somehow like in 10 minutes, she had kind of pegged that. So I think it would be, coaching of some sort. Again, baseball's kind of the passion in my life. So, that would probably, be it, maybe transforming youth sports so it wasn't a $1 billion business and it was just fun for kids again.
Yeah, I love it. And that's a whole nother episode in and of itself. It sounds like
Absolutely. Well, since you got to drop that one, on me, I could go that direction, or, again, I've always, kind of said, hey, we're going to have this nice little closing question that we ask everybody. So, one of my friends has this little saying over the toilet that says, everybody wants to change the world, but nobody wants to change the toilet paper. Do you actually change the toilet paper? And then secondarily, what would you do to change the world?
Yeah. So first part, yes, I always change the toilet paper, which is, it's just, I respect the sanctuary of the restroom and the bathroom. So whether at my house or a guest or at their house, I'm always going to make sure that's the case. So let's go ahead and nip that in the bud in there. The thing that I would do and try to do, honestly, is just go out and treat people with kindness and compassion and positivity. I think that ultimately, if you can go out, and it doesn't have to be something crazy, like I'm not saying I'm Mother Teresa over here, but like just being nice to people, being kind to people, having a positive attitude, ultimately, in my belief, after personal experience and also research, like you can have a tremendous impact by doing simple things that require little to no effort and no money. And so, that's what I'm going to continue to do. And then we'll see if that leads to anything. Maybe I need to go to the youth league baseball and just hang out around there for a while. Maybe that would be something I could do to start with a case study.
Create a little case study, create a little positivity there. So, all right. Well, I'd love to go ahead and just thank everybody for listening to our first episode and spending a little bit of time with us.
Thanks again for tuning in to the Vet Worthwhile podcast. You can find us online at signaturefd.com/signatureveterinary. And then our ask would be, if you found this episode valuable, just think of one friend or colleague that you think would enjoy the content and just please share. So thanks again. We'll see you next time.
Travis York is the owner of 3-in-1 Vet Advisors and a partner of Signature FD. 3-in-1 Vet Advisors is a veterinary consulting and strategic planning firm of which Signature FD has no involvement or ownership. James Yost is a partner and wealth advisor at Signature FD. Signature FD is an investment advisor registered with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. 3-in-1 Vet Advisors and Signature FD are not affiliated. Mr. York provides all non-investment advisory services through 3-in-1 Vet Advisors. The opinions of the guests and the contents of this podcast are intended to be educational only and should not be relied upon as investment, tax, business, or planning advice. You should consult with a professional advisor prior to taking any course of action that may impact you or your business.